Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of the Drive Home Podcast. Today, I'm driving to work because I've noticed an inability for me to want to record after work. But that's besides the point. Let's drive this podcast home. Or, well, in this instance, to work. So, it's actually been a while for me. It's been a while. A lot's happened. So, I work quite a bit. I just got off of vacation, which is why, because I didn't record anything for an entire week. So, I say just, it's like Tuesday now. So, it's not just, but it's been at least like 2 weeks, or more or less. So, I guess the biggest thing recently, at least for me, is got in a fight with some friends. Well, not a fist fight or anything, just a verbal argument. And I don't think they want to talk to me right now, which sucks. But to each their own, I guess. I don't know. We have differing political views, so it's not like, Real quick, I just want to make one thing clear. Later in the episode, I end up bringing up the fact that me and my friends aren't talking right now. It's not like a specifically defined thing, and we could be talking tonight if something is happening, but I don't know how to. I can't be another person. I can't know what they're feeling when they're feeling it. I assume that they're angry with me, and I'm not entirely sure how long that will last. So I am just not messaging them. I'm not gonna force the interaction. But they never once said that they were not going to be friends with me. I want to make that clear. They never once stated that they were going to stop being friends with me because of this. They're both rational people. I just want to make that clear. They're both good people. I care for them. They're great. And it's just sometimes we disagree on things. And it gets heated. So, I just wanted to say that. And also, I don't know if we talked about this, but in the unnumbered episode about Charlie Kirk, I definitely mentioned, when I was talking about it, I used some longer C words that were conflating, or maybe not that, but basically what I mean to say is I might have misspoke, but at some point or another. But the main point of what I wanted to say is that if you don't condemn Charlie Kirk's death and instead celebrate it and are happy because he's dead, you are the one with the problem. That's about it. This right back to me now, in the past, future, something. Have a good episode. Sorry about that. Hit something wrong. Anyway, as I was saying, so me and my friends got into a verbal disagreement about politics. Because of course, that's what happens. So, and because I've decided to actually voice my political opinions now, when I have them, I guess it's probably good to go over my sort of history with politics. So, I guess my earliest introduction to politics was Obama's first election. It was between Obama and somebody else, I don't remember. I couldn't vote. I was in elementary school, but it was introduced to us because it was showing us how to vote. So we had these little booths with like curtains, and like you would go in, you would sign one of the little vote ballot things or whatever, and you put it in the box, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, at the time, I didn't know politics about either of the guys, so it really didn't matter to me either way. So I picked based off of favoritism, based off of name, because that's pretty much the only way I knew them. So Obama, Barack Obama had more letters in common with my name, and the other guy had more letters in common with my brother's name. So I chose Obama. And like for Obama's presidency, I never really paid attention. Like I was maybe in first grade when that happened, or even like kindergarten. I don't even remember. So long ago. So I didn't really need to pay much attention because at the time, and as was per the usual, no one really cared what the presidents did unless if it was something big. And so the only time I ever really heard about it was dinners on Friday with my grandparents on my mother's side. Because lo and behold, my dad, my mother, and my grandfather on my mother's side, at least, are all Republican, which I didn't really find out until later. And by later, I mean relatively recently. So, but, yeah, no, it is what it is. Like, I'm fairly certain I heard that he, like, did some things that were considered bad. Like, at least things I would consider bad. Like, what was it? He did a crap ton of drone strikes over in what is it called? It's like the Middle East. Just, same places, Iran and stuff. In a bunch of different countries over there. And I know under Obama, Osama bin Laden died, which was good. But a lot of civilians died in the drone bombings, which there were, like 500 of or something? These are the 500 that we're aware of. It's like, that's a lot. And anyway, like, that's what happened. So really, I never really paid enough attention to know about any of that. Maybe I heard about, like, well, Obama did this wrong or whatever, but it was pretty much just whatever. I don't really care. It's not really something that showed up a lot, because I never really cared for news. If the news was on when I was younger, just ignore it. do something else, anything else, change the channel if I could. But my grandfather, we had dinner at his house, so he was in charge. So, and if my grandfather wasn't in charge, my grandmother was in charge, and she liked to do like home renovation channels. I can't really say for sure what side my grandmother is on. I would say she's more on my mother's side. I would say my grandmother was more, well, at least currently is more left than right. But she's not, she's not going out there doing stuff or anything. She was a stay-at-home mom from a young age. She had a couple jobs because due to the time period, kids get jobs. Well, teenagers get jobs. But from what I can tell, she mostly, after she had my mother, which they were both really young for that to happen. They weren't technically adults yet, but they're like 1-2 year difference in age, so it's all good. So they had my mother, and so my grandfather went to work. He's a really good mechanic. He had to retire a couple years ago because of something, I guess. I don't know. He didn't want to work it. Well, no. I don't know, but he still does stuff all the time. But he's like retired. So, but my grandmother had like 1 or 2 jobs, as far as I know. But she was a stay-at-home mom. She would take care of the house. She would take care of my mother and eventually my uncle, who came in a lot later. There's a good, 5+ year age gap between them. Anyway, which my uncle on my mom's side is Republican too. I think it's really just my grandmother that's on the fence about it on my mother's side, which that's fair. I mean, as I've always said, you can have your own political views. I don't really care. You can believe what you want to. I think that's a key tenet of, just generally America, is you can believe what you want to. That includes religion and stuff. That includes your beliefs on certain, other things. Like Christianity says, having a man doing it with another man or whatever, or specifically if they share a bed in the same manner that a man and his wife would share a bed, that's not looked favorably upon. There's not ever been a crime associated with it. It's not associated as a crime. And just to be, I'm not religious. I kind of want to be now. But overall, there were churches in my neighborhood. The only time I ever went to them were Boy Scouts, funerals, and recently I went to a wedding. Within the past year or 2 years ago. So, but anyway, that's kind of early. But so the big thing, 2016, Donald Trump. That's the big thing. So everyone kept parroting the same talking points because it was middle school. I was in middle school at this point, and the whole talking point was he's got an orange face. He sounds funny. He's racist because he wants to deport illegal immigrants, but he at the time, I think he just straight up was like, you know, illegal Mexicans as well. That's basically what he said. Which, like, at the time, like, my views are basically shaped like, you can do what you want, I don't really care. Like, if you want to be gay, that's okay. If you want to be lesbian, that's cool. Trans wasn't as big of a thing back in 2016, I don't think. Or at least not big, or at least not talked about, or relevant, or as relevant in my school. So it wasn't something they've really talked about. And we never really got political in school after my elementary school did that. Which I had 2 elementary schools, so it was a different district. So maybe the first district I was in was kind of about that, and the second one wasn't. I don't know. But I think the key point is that I would consider myself a Democrat or, you know, left wing in my beliefs. I mean, mostly apolitical, but also, you know, basically I had Trump derangement syndrome because everyone else had Trump derangement syndrome. And it was the cool thing to do because I didn't understand politics. And one of my friends is part Mexican or something. I mean, like, he was born in America and all that and stuff. But, like, his dad, he lives in Mexico. And the story that I heard was that, and I believe it, because it wasn't really related to politics when the story was told to me, was that he illegally crossed the border a couple of times to give my friend's mom money. And he got caught enough times to the point where he's not really allowed in legally, which sucks. But they stay in contact. Is that, I think. Yeesh. But yeah, I don't know. That's what I remember. About it. And so, like, obviously I was very, like, anti-Trump because that was the thing. Yeah, it was the popular thing. You know? Never really looked into it or anything. I didn't really care for politics. It was just easy to clown on Trump. And that's why I might have done it at the time. I probably did. It was always fun doing the Trump voice, though. It's very, I don't know how else to explain it. I guess it's like a, his voice, or at least the imitation of it, is definitely very, well, it's memeable, but it's also catchy, I guess. You know? Like, it sticks in your head, then you kind of want to say things in his voice, even if you like him or not, you just want to kind of say things in the voice that he does, because it's interesting and it's different. It's very specific. Anyway, fast forward. Because it was just the same, whatever, repeating talking points. Trump bad, Trump's a racist, whatever. 2020 rolled around, the election happened, and Biden won, and it was January 6th. And so from what I heard about January 6th, was that they rioted for maybe like 4 hours, and Trump didn't directly, like, he might have said things that could have caused it, but at the same time he was also like, guys, you gotta stop, you can't just do this, it's not right. So he was also the one to talk them down, which is like, I've never seen a Democrat go to any of the protests or riots and say, you know, make sure we do it peacefully, guys. They just believe that everything they do is peaceful. Anyway, it was like 4 years of Biden, and it was like, well, you know, Biden demented, whatever. Yeah, well, not demented, but like dementia. You got dementia, basically, whole time. Anyone who had eyes could tell. And then he did a lot of stupid stuff. Like whenever he was cognizant, he said a bunch of stuff that didn't really make a lot of sense. Biden said something along the lines of he wouldn't mind or he wouldn't do anything if Russia had a small incursion into Ukraine, which, like, what? That's crazy. Among other things, which, like, and, you know, I still believe that Democrats are basically better than Trump at this point. So, long story short, 2024 or whatever election comes around, well, basically, up until Trump got elected, so January 2025. And so, once he got elected a second time, I was really like, okay, I gotta actually look into this stuff. And a YouTuber I happen to be subscribed to for unrelated reasons had a second channel where they go over this stuff. And they're right-wing, and they're not really ashamed of it. And so I watched it because, you know, it's like, obviously take everything the guy says with a grain of salt or whatever, but, like, I mean, and then, you know, the guy started making sense, right? Like, you don't want illegal immigrants in your country, right? Because it's, I mean, for one, like, they don't really have the same rights. Like, they can't unionize, they can't get, like, actual insurance, or they shouldn't be able to, from what I know. Basically, being illegal in a country is tantamount to, like, having less rights. So, I mean, it's bad to do that. Anyway, I've arrived at work, so I gotta go inside. And, you know, my views have basically, like, you know, I mean, everything sort of played out as it did. I started paying attention to what Trump was actually saying and actually doing. And I think he, I don't know. I think he understands the political climate a little bit better now than he did in his first term. And he's getting things done a lot faster. Obviously, I think the Epstein files are a big slip up, and I think, like, a lot of the way that he phrased stuff about the Epstein files, not great. Like, I think what he's trying to say is that the Democrats' hoax about the Epstein files is that, obviously, they exist, but the hoax is that he is implicated in them, and that's what he says is a hoax about it. And I mean, there's a lack of evidence in the sense that there is no evidence to suggest that Trump ever went to Epstein's Island. You know, so, I mean, like, you can be friends with a guy and not know everything about him. Anyway, I got into a fight with my friends, and it sucks. And the only thing I will say is that I'll always be there for my friends, even if they don't want to really be my friends because of my political views, which I think is stupid. You should always be able to be friends with someone, regardless of their political views. If you don't want to be friends with someone because of their political views and how they oppose yours, I think that you don't think of that person as a friend. You think of that person as an echo chamber assistant, which is just stupid. Anyway, that's about it. I gotta go to work. See you all the next time I drive this podcast home, and see ya.